Susanne Klepsch, welcome to 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙒 Radio.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really honored and excited to be here.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you. Tell me about Meetfox. How did this company come about?
Sure. So I co-founded Meetfox a few years ago, back in 2016, back in Vienna, Austria, where I'm originally from. And Meetfox is a scheduling and video calling solution that helps service professionals manage and monetize their time. And we went through a real startup roller coaster, like the typical roller coaster with a lot of ups and downs, pivoted twice or changed our name twice. And so lots of different things happened throughout the years. And then, to be honest, thanks to the pandemic, we suddenly saw like a real growth in our user base because everybody was looking for a scheduling solution. Everybody was looking for a video calling solution. So that really helped us take off. And in February of last year, we got acquired by Sendinblue. So,
okay, I'm gonna pause you there. That's the very, very short story, but I want to dig in a little bit more. So it's a fast 2016 to 2021. I mean, that's a very, very fast 5-year trajectory. So I'm dying to find out more of that. But first, I want to understand the company. So scheduling software, and you said something really nice. It was to help manage and also monetize their. Give me that line again. You said schedule and monetize?
Yeah, schedule and monetize service professionals' time. So basically, yeah, it's a scheduling solution similar to Calendly, but what made us different, especially in the beginning, of course, now a lot of our competitors have also adapted those features, but we had our own, or we have our own video calling solution fully integrated. And then we are also allowing people to charge for their video calls. So what we're able to do is like put in a payment process into the booking process that allows them to charge for the time. And so
I love that because that's an age-old challenge that a lot of people who sell their time, so consultants and other people, is they're kind of squeamish about the billing of their time. Like, is this on, is this a paid call? Is this business development? What if the person doesn't show up? Like, I've given them an hour of my time. That's my inventory on the shelf. I've got 40 hours. If they don't, they wait. And your tool, as I understood it, allowed someone to schedule an appointment with a service provider, but B, if the service provider insisted that they get payment up front, the person scheduling the appointment would have to plug in their credit card right there.
Exactly.
So that the service provider was guaranteed that money effectively for giving them that hour of their time.
Exactly. And by doing so, we also help them avoid that uncomfortable conversation to have where you have to send an email with an invoice or you have to ask upfront for payment.
Oh, yeah.
So that was making it a little easier. But you would be surprised how many service professionals, when we started off, were really uncertain about using that. And also about, And so I have to admit that we started in Austria, where things are always a little bit behind and things take longer to adapt. And so video calling was a no-go. People did not want to use video calls for the services. That was, again, before the pandemic. But then also asking your clients for the credit card information or asking them to pay upfront was also something that we thought it was a smart idea, but the market did not adapt that so well. And that is also the reason why we then moved to the US and really started it more or less here because we realized. And
what was the reaction to the integrated payment in the US market?
It was way better because Americans are way more used to using their credit card on a day-to-day basis. And so there's not this anxiety about putting your credit card details on some kind of website as there is in Europe. And so I think that helped us a lot. And then also there was just video calls were just so much more adapted at that time, even before the pandemic, that it wasn't that uncommon to sometimes have video calls instead of face-to-face meetings. And so that was kind of our angle to enter the market.
Okay. So I have to admit, I'm a Calendly user. Don't hate me.
Yeah.
But when I'm when I'm comparing your solution to Calendly on the scheduling functions, so people on my network can pick 30 minutes on my calendar, 60 minutes, like they're at parity, right?
Yeah.
But in 2016, 17, you also included the video and the payments, which were differentiators.
Yes. And to be honest, now in hindsight, we should have not differentiated ourselves so much, because I think that the fact that we had video calling and payment and we tried to promote that as a feature was, in hindsight, pretty detrimental to our success, because I think if we were just focusing on scheduling, it would have made it a pretty easy sell at that time. People were not yet using Calendly as much. There was still a lot of space to acquire market share. And we were trying to sell them already on 3 different things that they were maybe not yet doing. So maybe they were not yet, having video calls. Maybe they were not yet charging during the booking, and maybe they were not yet having a calendaring solution. And we tried to sell them on all of that. And by doing so, we made our messaging very unclear. And I think we should have just gone with scheduling only and then added some additional features later on. But we tried really hard to be different. We understood that Calendly was a rising star on the horizon at that time, and we just wanted to position ourselves differently. And we also thought that you have to be like do something different and be innovative, and not just like
you can't just be parody or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you take me through the rest of the story. So 2016, you started in Vienna as people were like, I don't do video and I'm not certainly doing credit cards. So you go to the US. Where did you get the money to start this thing? Because it doesn't sound cheap. You got to have developers and there's a bunch of stuff involved. What was your
So we got
finance?
very lucky that we were able to develop our product with a great team that was willing to put in a lot of their time and not be as expensive as it would have been if we had started from the beginning in the US. Our entire development team was back in Europe. And we also had, we were lucky because we got into Techstars, which gave us some initial funding, and through and some other accelerator programs. Also, because we originated as an Austrian company, we got a lot of public grants. That's the beauty of starting a company in Europe, is that there are many public grants available that are really helping you at the beginning. At the same time, there's not so much institutional funding or VC money available in Austria and other European countries.
So you got Techstars, accelerators, public grants, all in. Do you have any sense of like what you would have raised in the way of capital through those 3 sources?
I think through those we probably raised overall $700K.
Wow. And how much equity did you have to give up for that amount of cash?
Let me think. I think it was 15%.
15%, 1.5.
Yeah.
For $700,000. So it's a pretty valuable idea.
Yeah. The good thing is that it was a lot of the public grants in Austria are sometimes even equity free. You just have to show that you're doing something different, that you're investing in research and development and those sorts of things. So yeah, it pays off, but it's also a lot of work to get a grant.
You mentioned there was a we involved. So it's not just you. Who else co-founded this company with you?
So it was my co-founder, 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙇, who is our CTO, and then 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙐𝙍, who is our COO, CRO. And
how did you guys figure out the equity? Did you just do a third, or did you how did you split things up between the two of you?
Yeah, so the thing is that I originally started with a different co-founder. Things didn't work out. Then I decided to continue by myself, but also realized that it's so important to have good people in your team, and it's so valuable to be able to split up the workload. And so I then found 2 co-founders, and to be honest, Kali, I found her. She wrote me on LinkedIn, and we just connected and went for coffee, and everything went great from there. And 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇 as well. He was just applying for for a position, and I realized immediately that he's super talented and that he has the potential to really grow into a different role. And so he immediately took on the CTO role, and I was super lucky to get those people on board. And because I've already like put in some time and money investment at the beginning, we decided to split it up in like a little bit of a different ratio. So it wasn't one third each, but it was still like a discussion that we had, and based on the time that we all put in, and based on the value that we put in. But yeah.
So if I understand, were Tally and Joseph drawing a salary? Or was everybody just doing the work for free until you could kind of get things going?
At that time, we were able to pay salaries, but to be honest, those salaries were very, very small.
Below market.
Yeah. And so there was definitely an equity component needed. Just to also be fair, and I think that they more than deserved it with all the work that they put into the company.
I've heard from founders that can be a really delicate conversation, because as a founder, you've put your blood, sweat, tears into this company. You've got other people coming in. You're trying to get them for less than market. So there's this whole difficult conversation. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was definitely not easy. And I think that what we did, of course, we had some vesting clause in our contract to make sure that we're not just giving away equity right from the beginning, that there is some expectation attached to the equity that is being distributed. And so I tried at least to be as explicit as possible on the expectations, on the time, effort that we are all putting in. And I think it's in the end all about kind of finding a balance and making sure that everybody feels like they're fairly treated, while at the same time creating like some motivation as well to maybe gain more if you achieve a certain level. So what we also did, we had some goals that everybody was supposed to achieve, and if they achieved that, then they would get some additional equity. So that's how we tried to split it up and motivate everyone. Yeah.
And were the goals tied to the overall performance of the company, or their individual performance?
It was, of course, everything is kind of tied always together. So a company, for example, Tally's goals were more focused on getting more clients in and more revenues in. But at the same time, of course, the revenues can't go without a good product. So of course, it's also very much dependent on the product that Joseph was delivering again. So even though they're intertwined, it was more of an individual, a goal that everybody individual could at least impact.
That makes sense. Got it. And just out of curiosity, I know a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this would be curious about the vesting schedule. So was it vesting based on time, like a certain number of months or years have to go by, or was it vesting based on hitting specific milestones as a company?
It was a combination.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that only doing it on time is a little bit difficult, because at least I'm a person that's like very attached to my team members, and I felt like it was difficult to, if you know that it's only based on time, but maybe the performance isn't there, and it's sometimes difficult to keep people. And that's why having a combination of a time component as well as a objective that needs to be reached, or certain milestones that need to be reached, was helpful for me at least.
Okay. I'm dying to ask you about the sales, because you mentioned it was tough in Austria. You moved to the US, you get some capital behind you through Techstars and others. What was the trajectory like from there? Like, did you start selling American customers? Like, how big did you get in 2017, 2018? Like, what did that look like?
So we started off in North America, and we didn't really have any brand, any name, and no marketing budget to build. So it was very difficult for us to really grow our revenue at that time. Our product was mediocre at that time as well, so it wasn't an easy sell. What we did back in the days is we had an 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙀 deal. I don't know if you're familiar with 𝙁𝙁𝙊𝙀, but we had this there's this deal side where you can sell a deal to early adopters. And that really helped us shape our roadmap and get early feedback.
Explain 𝙁𝙊𝙐 for folks who don't know 𝙁𝙊𝙐, including me. What is it?
So 𝙁𝙊𝙐 is this page that has a lot of different products that are usually pretty new products. And so it's kind of like a Kickstarter in a way, but it's more for like SaaS products that are already on the market, are ready to be used. And usually you give up your product for, I guess, 70-80% discount. So it's a pretty significant discount that is usually tied to either a lifetime deal or a yearly deal. So in the end, it's really not a good, it doesn't really have a very positive impact on your revenue. But what it does, it gives you some traction, and it gives you some early learnings, and it gives you a lot of early adopters. And the 𝙁𝙊𝙐 user base is very happy to give feedback. They usually are very tech savvy. They know all the other products that are on the market. So that really helped us kind of kickstart in the US.
So you get instant market research, lots of feedback for folks who are happy, testimonials, I'm imagining. Folks who think it's good.
Yeah.
And that gives you Capterra reviews and it triggers. Got it.
Yeah. So that got us to a certain level, but then it was still very difficult. So right before the pandemic, we were, to be honest, close to just calling it a day and shutting down the business, because it was just not, it was going into some direction, but we weren't growing fast enough. We were running out of money. We knew that like raising another round would be difficult with our trajectory that we had at that time. And then, as I said before, the pandemic hit, and that really changed a lot.
Before we go to the pandemic, though, I want to just get a sense. So just give me as much as you're willing to share, sort of top line revenue, churn, like when you're thinking of shutting it down, like where are you on the kind of key metrics, like revenue, churn, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been a while, so I haven't checked the numbers lately. But I think we had a few thousand dollars a month in recurring revenue, and we had definitely more costs with our team and with everything. So it was definitely not profitable, far from profitable. And so that's why we realized that we have to do something or we have to shut it down.
And how about churn? How sticky were customers?
Because they were mainly 𝙁𝙊𝙐 customers, the churn metrics were also completely skewed, because 𝙁𝙊𝙐 users are usually buying a license that is valid for a year or even a lifetime. So they're not churning, they're sticking around. So we were able to detect our user metrics, but to be honest, at that time we also didn't have like amplitude and segment and all these like user tracking in place that allowed us to really get good insights. That was something that we learned also throughout the accelerator that we participated in, that we have to just track way more data, really like figure out the insights through data before that we were relying on user feedback that we got on review sites. And yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I can summarize where we're at so far. So doesn't work in Austria. You bring it to the US. The 𝙁𝙊𝙐 is a double-edged sword in the sense, number one, it brings in lots of customers who give you lots of feedback. So it's great for research, but they're heavily discounted and lifetime deals. So they're kind of skewing your numbers. You're only at a few $1,000s in revenue per month, which isn't even enough to pay your co-founders properly. So you're like, maybe we just shut this thing down.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic hits. What happens
then
next?
The pandemic hits. And suddenly we received a lot of organic traffic. I mean, of course, also through the 𝙁𝙊𝙐 user base, but then also through other places. I suddenly received a lot of invites to podcasts, to different kind of organic channels that I was able to leverage, because we were suddenly able to position ourselves as a kind of a pandemic winner in the startup ecosystem at that time, because suddenly people were looking for a video calling solution. We were lucky enough to have a video calling solution embedded. We were lucky enough to have a scheduling solution embedded. And at that time, people also needed to schedule COVID testing appointments. There were like I mean, even in Europe, you had to like make an appointment to go to any kind of shops at some point. You needed to make an appointment for everything. And so that really helped us get the ball moving. And it was just an interesting experience to wake up suddenly in the morning and suddenly have like every day more and more users. But to be honest,
what did that feel like?
I mean, it felt great. Like it felt like we finally had our product market fit. It really, yeah, it was a great feeling. But then at the same time, it also didn't last that long, to be honest. Like we could have used that pandemic way more. Oh, not the pandemic, but we could have used that sudden market need in a way better way. But at the same time, suddenly there were lots of competitors going into the market very aggressively. A lot of like Zoom suddenly started offering things for free, the product for free. Microsoft Teams as well. Google went in with like everybody came in with a very good solution that was mainly offered for free. So we suddenly had to offer certain things for free as well because it was a pandemic. We wanted to be compassionate and we wanted to just like help everyone that was struggling in that time. So we tried to do all sorts of things. The good thing is at that time we got into the accelerator and we were able to raise some money, and so that helped us a lot to do certain things. But we definitely did not have enough money to do as much marketing as we should have done at that time to really leverage that market opportunity. And so, yeah.
What was helping you rank organically? Because I mean, I'm imagining if I typed in scheduling software, my assumption would be the first 10 links would be Calendly articles or something. Like, how did you all of a sudden start ranking organically? That I'm like, why wouldn't Calendly like benefit from 100% of the increased demand associated with the pandemic?
Yeah, so we did we started writing a lot of blogs. We started to collaborate with some other companies that were writing about us. But yeah, it was definitely difficult because Calendly at that time was already a very strong play in the market, and they already had a big market share. And it's so organically we weren't growing that much on SEO search, but we were trying different ways to get into like a different user base. We, for example, partnered up with a lot of associations, like coaching associations, lawyer associations, to get in front of them. So yeah, we just did a lot of things that probably Calendly wasn't doing because they didn't need to, and we definitely had to.
Kind of scrappy. Yeah. Bootstrapping kind of tactics.
Exactly.
Love it. So at this time, early in the pandemic, just give me a feature set of Calendly. So we've talked about, and for folks who don't know either of these products, both of them offered scheduling. So you could configure it to your calendar. And so your customers or clients could choose a time on your calendar for an appointment. So that scheduling was in both products. Did Calendly also have the video conferencing embedded at this time?
They started to. So at the beginning of the pandemic, they started to have a Zoom integration and then some other video calling integrations. That was also probably one of the big learnings for us, is that we were trying to have this all-in-one solution and build it all from scratch and by ourselves. In the end, we should have just like really gotten focused on scheduling only because the market was still very big for that. And we should have just partnered up with other video calling solutions, other payment solutions to take care of the rest, and just integrate with them instead of trying to build everything in-house, because also competing against Zoom's video quality is not that easy. And so you're just like competing on 3 different levels, and also from a product point of view, you're always trying to improve the product and implement new features all the time, but on 3 different product layers. And that's just very challenging to prioritize.
Yeah. So key learning, next time you would have integrated with Stripe and integrated with Zoom or whatever.
Exactly.
And called it a day.
Yeah. And just focus really on being the best scheduling solution instead.
And just let me, if I want to play this out in my own mind. So you would have ceded the number 1 spot to Calendly, but would have been happy with being the number 2 player. Like exactly. The Avis of the
Exactly.
scheduling software space is a big enough pie that you would have been super happy to be the number 2 player in that space.
Totally. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because like this, we always had to explain to our users why we are better than Calendly, but then also why is our video calling better than Zoom, and why is our, so we always had to explain on too many layers. And as I said in the beginning, it was just the messaging was not clear enough of what we are really offering. And it also made the user base or our target customer base a little smaller, because we were really trying to find those users that needed all 3 features instead of just focusing on the big market opportunity that was just scheduling, for example, at that time.
But if you just said we are scheduling software, wouldn't you have lost 100 out of 100 deals? Like, if you don't give someone a point of differentiation, wouldn't they just by default go with the market leader? Like, did you ever try just leading with? And what did you discover?
Yeah, we tried, and we've received a lot of users only for scheduling as well, and it did work. I think it's, of course, in hindsight, you never know how it could have played out, and it could have been better, it could have been worse. But my feeling is that it would have just provided a clearer message, and it would have helped us focus and become a better product. And we could have probably eventually become a better product than Calendly, because we were really fast at product development, even though we had a small team. We were really good at that, and I believe we could have, if we just focused on one product instead of 3, we would have been able to find new features and other things that maybe Calendly wasn't offering at that time.
Yeah. But the pandemic did increase your sales, as you say, dramatically. Sort of, how did you end 2020, the first sort of 9 months of the pandemic time, March? Like, by the end of calendar year 2020, well, how big were you? I mean, you can use revenue or number of users, whatever proxy you want to use for size.
I mean, I think we had around, so we were never really big. We were always still a small team. It's still, a small startup with very limited resources. I believe at that time we were probably at 10,000 users, active users. By the time we sold, we were at 25,000 users. So just to give you an idea on that.
25,000 users.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people hearing that number think, man, you're downplaying this success, because that's a lot of users. A lot of companies, it's not Calendly, but it's not nothing either. Like, it's a significant number of users.
The problem was really the monetization part of it, though. Like, getting a lot of money from those users is not easy, especially because Calendly at that time was offering even more and more features for free, and then they were offering the max of $9 that people were paying. So making a lot of money with that user base is not easy, and that is one thing that we realized, that we either have to be better on a product side or we have to be cheaper. And the market had at that time become so competitive that we realized we needed to do something, and either work together with a bigger player and integrate deeper with a bigger player in order to get a user base, or actually sell. And that is why in the end we decided to go for an acquisition process.
Yeah. So by the end of 2021, you're at 25,000 users, but the market has driven down the price per user, Calendly charging $9 a user. What were you guys charging per user ish? Also
like $10 per user.
$10 per user per month. So it's a tough way to make a living because of the lower price per user. This giant gorilla has driven down the price. And so you saw one of the potential avenues to go was to do some sort of partnership or get acquired outright. Is that right?
Yeah. And at that time, within a few months, a couple of our competitors, smaller competitors, but still significant competitors in the market, were selling their businesses, getting acquired. And so we realized that there's some kind of trend or some consolidation happening. And what I did is I reached out to all of these founders who just recently sold the companies, and I tried to understand, why did you do it? Like, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Where's your head at? And it was great to talk to them because I was surprised how open they were and how helpful they were. And
What did they tell you?
I mean, they all said that it is difficult to, like, you can be number one, you can be number two maybe, and still make a great living, maybe number three too. But then there's this huge pool of other scheduling tools that are out there that I'd have to be super different, and nobody really knew how to be that different from Calendly or others. Or there will be more and more consolidation happening in the market where these all-in-one solutions will just have those features embedded, and that scheduling solutions are becoming less and less of a standalone product and more of a feature. And so that was a really interesting insight that I got from a few of the founders, and that made me realize that we really have to like find a good, strong partner to become a feature maybe in a different company.
Interesting. So the acquire or the companies that had gone through this M&A process were saying to you, these other founders, we realized that this is really now a feature within a product as opposed to a product in and of itself.
Yes.
So that's interesting. What did you do next? Like, did you hire a broker or did you reach out to Calendly and say, buy us? Like, what did you say?
So I did, I asked a few of my founder friends. The good thing is that the founder community always has people that help with the advice or their learnings. And even though those competitors of mine were super helpful, some of them gave me the list of the other companies they talked to and said, hey, those are interested. You should talk to them as well because they didn't sell to them. So, maybe they were still interested in us. So that was good. And we tried to work with a broker, but then also realized that at that stage that we were in, it was also a lot about our team and what we've built in our story. And so we realized that it's not those like first initial meetings or the first conversations that we are going to have with companies. They will still want to talk to the founders and to us and really understand that. And it's not just like a game where you can look at our profit and loss statement, our balance sheet, and be like, okay, this is a great, a great deal that we are interested in. But it's more about that personal connection. And so I decided with my team to go do the entire process ourselves, which was a fun experience, pretty challenging. But what we did is we basically had we created a list. So first of all, we had a few conversations, the casual conversations with companies, realized, okay, that there is actually a potential to partner up, which was great because we realized, okay, there's the interest in partnering up. And so we were torn between, should we partner or should we actually sell our business? And then one of these partners said, hey, we aren't interested in partnering, but we would be interested in buying a company like yours. And that is what really then triggered it for me to go and start an M&A process. And so we looked all around our like competitive landscape, our at complementary products to ours, and figured out who could be a potential buyer. And we created different clusters because there's always different reasons why a company would purchase us. And so we did that whole exercise, and then we started reaching out to each and every one of these companies via LinkedIn mainly. And it was surprising how many responses we got on LinkedIn.
I want to ask you about that. Two quick questions. What did you say in your LinkedIn message?
In the beginning, I was only talking about partnerships, and was a little bit more careful because I never did that before, so I wasn't sure how to even approach an M&A conversation. And so I just said that we have this company and we are looking at partnering up. At the end of it, or once I got a few more learnings, I just like directly said, hey, we are currently in an M&A process. We are planning to sell in 2 months from now. We are in final conversations, but I thought you may also be interested. Do you want to start a conversation? So it became way more direct in my approach, and that really helped. So I think in hindsight, I should have also just like gotten straight to the point. But at that time,
be more direct.
Yeah.
Interesting. And at this stage, are you starting to get a sense of what your company might be worth? You've got 25,000 customers, albeit paying you only a modest amount per month. like, are you putting any numbers in your mind about what it might be worth? Have you seen benchmarks out there? What are you seeing? What are you thinking that it might be worth?
Right. But at that time, I talked to a few M&A advisors, I talked to a few founders, and then I talked to investors as well. And of course, the ranges are just, there are vast discrepancies between the ranges that people have communicated to me. And some were saying, okay, you should have at least, ask for at least $1 million per developer or per employee. Others were saying that it should be, 5x your revenue. Then others said it should be 10x your revenue. So at that time, it was just like, people were saying a lot of things, and I feel like in the end, it just really depends on what the offers are that you're getting. And because we were still quite an early stage company that wasn't fully grown out yet, we didn't have, the best metrics yet. So it's all about also how much trust the company, the purchaser, the acquirer is putting into the business and putting into the future success of the business, more so than the current success of the business. So I think it also comes down a lot to how good as a founder you are able to sell the potential, to make them believe that you and the rest of the team are in it to win it for them in the future, and that you are going to make it be a good decision. And then it's all about negotiation. So how much as a founder you're willing to also take on in terms of risk, and maybe have something deferred as an earnout versus wanting to get everything up front, which makes it maybe more difficult also for the acquirer to really trust in your business and pay much more upfront. So it's all it was all a matter of.
So as you're making these LinkedIn messages, it sounds like, and I want you to clarify and validate or refute what I'm saying. It sounds like you are open to the idea of an earnout or going to work for the acquirer for a period of time. You had sort of in your own mind sort of realized that was probably going to be necessary to monetize what you built. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, and to be honest, it was also something I was excited for, because I wasn't at that time ready to leave my baby yet. It felt like we put so much effort into this product. We really still believed in the product itself and in the potential it has. But at that time, we just knew we needed to work together with somebody else on making it possible, making it successful. And so, as a team, we also had this discussion internally, like, are we all comfortable with staying on board if we get acquired, or do we want an out? And all of us wanted to stay in that journey together and be part of it. And that made it easier for us. We also had, I think, 2 companies that wanted to buy us that said upfront, we're just interested in the technology. We are not going to acquire or take any of the team members, which would have been also fine for us. But it was still, I felt also more comfortable knowing that my entire team has like a good employer next, and where they feel comfortable, where they can continue building the dream that we all have. So
if you put 5 engineers in a room and lots of coffee in a closed room, no windows, how long would it take them to build a replica of your basic application, Meetfox? Like, give me a sense of like I'm trying to figure out, if I'm one of these all-in-one marketing softwares and I want to add scheduling, I guess my BATNA, best alternative negotiated agreement, is like, well, I just build it myself, right? Like, I'll just get a bunch of engineers in a room and they'll build it. Did you have a number in terms of how much that would cost to do, roughly?
I mean, we did. So the thing is that when we started off, the technology wasn't there yet. You couldn't use any kind of open APIs, open source technologies to create what we created at that time. So that the work that we put into it was definitely way longer than what it would take now. Now, if you put probably 5 engineers into a room and you exactly know what you're going to build, for whom you're going to build it, and the feature set, and you can just replicate it, it probably takes 6 months to build a similar tool. But I do think that the expertise that we built by doing it the hard way, and learning the entire technology inside out, knowing what works, what doesn't work, knowing talking to a lot of our users and understanding the pain points helped us build a better product. And also now within Sendable, we actually went through the exercise of replicating a lot of our product and building it not from scratch, but reusing some of it and building some additional things into it. And just those learnings that we had as a team helped us just become way faster and build a better product now. So yeah, it's difficult because you can always say, you can just put in a team, but then and pay for the development from scratch. But a lot of the know-how that the team has gained throughout the years is still very valuable for a company.
Absolutely. And you've also got 25,000 customers, which is nothing to sneeze at. You've also got a brand, you've got reviews on Capterra. Like there's a lot of equity beyond just the code, but clearly one of the avenues these acquirers could have chosen to take is, well, we're not going to buy you. We're just going to build the feature.
Right.
That
happens a lot.
Yeah. So take me through. So you're reaching out to these folks on LinkedIn. People are pretty receptive when you're more direct. You're like, hey, we're going through a process, you guys in. How many serious conversations, how many serious acquirers did you talk to during that time, would you say?
So we reached out to over 100. I think I had with over 100 companies I had first meetings. So my November that year was packed with meetings all the time. Sometimes I entered meetings because one of my team members, he scheduled everything for me, and he did the whole outreach in my name and was really good at that. But that meant that I was in my calendar, I just had back-to-back meetings, and sometimes I entered meetings without even knowing what the company was doing because I was just so overwhelmed. I was so underprepared sometimes for those meetings. So it was an interesting learning curve. I should have definitely prepared better for some of these meetings and maybe spaced it out a little. But at that time, we would just realize, okay, we are now in the process. If those companies want to talk to us, we will have to talk to them right away. So I had a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of work, but it was an interesting.
And how did you approach those calls? I mean, did you, I'm dying to know, you were quite direct in your LinkedIn. Hey, we're going through a process, like role play with me. So we're on the phone. I'm like, hey, I think you reached out. You guys are looking to sell. Is that right, Susanne? Like, what did you say next? Like, what were the first 2 or 3 questions you asked, or how did you take the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to be pretty honest, which I don't know if that was a smart approach or not, but I just basically told them that we built a very robust, very good product. Our users really like the product, but we also know that the market is, the market is competitive, and that as a standalone product, we can never be as strong as we could be as part of something bigger, and that's why we want to become part of something bigger. And so I kind of tried to, whenever I knew who the company was that I was talking to, I was really trying to also show them how we could integrate our product into their product, where I see the big potential and how much also sometimes revenue potential that could have. So sometimes I did go the extra mile and try to figure it all out so that my pitch was what was more interesting. And sometimes it was just more of an open conversation.
So of the 100, how many of them got serious enough to prepare a letter of intent or some sort of formal expression of interest?
So in the end, we probably maybe had some ongoing conversations, but sometimes they're just dragging those out for the longest time. It's a meeting and every other week with somebody, but it's not going anywhere, and you don't know why. And so probably we had 20 companies that we had regular meetings with, but it wasn't going where we wanted to. And out of those 20, I think we went into due diligence with roughly, first due diligence with roughly 10.
Wow.
And the thing is, we had probably 3 that were really serious. And then we had another 3 or 4 that we were unfortunately not managing the timing right. So at that time, we already had a few offers on the table. We had Sendable's offer on the table, and we just started conversations with other companies. So you're always being told that you should manage your timing right when you're doing, for example, fundraising. with M&A, it's just the same way. You have to make sure that they're all in the same stage of the conversation. And if you suddenly have somebody who is already in the letter of intent stage and you have a first conversation with another company that could be really interesting, you don't really have the time anymore to go back and forth. And the company that you already have an LOI from won't wait forever until you've completed all your other conversations. They will want to pressure you into making a decision, which is also completely understandable. And that is why at some point we had to face this difficult decision whether we want to take a risk and wait until we find out what the other companies are willing to offer, or we just make a decision and go with one of the offers that we had on the table. And yeah, in the end, we went with 𝙤𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙐, and we were super happy that we did. But at that time, it was, of course, a difficult decision whether or not, this was the best offer or not.
Yeah, for my listeners, what you're referring to there and trying to line up timing, I think M&A professionals refer to that as sort of a structured process, and they do that so that everybody sort of gets to the finish line at the same time, and that's the idea, so that you can kind of create a bit of a bidding war, but give all the people all the information at the same time, so they can sort of be at the same spot when you want them to be there. It's a really good insight and good learning for sure for our listeners. So you had 3 letters of intent. Maybe walk me through the key differences. Like, as you absorb them, how would you describe the 3 offers? What were the difference between the
3? I think it was all about, in the structure, of course, they all have usually an earnout component. They had like some kind of sum upfront, then some conditions of how long the team would have to be committed to the company. In the end, for us, the decision was, of course, a financial decision, but at the same time, it was a cultural decision, and we wanted to make sure that we, as a small startup, fit into the culture of that bigger company. And for example, at 𝙤𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙐, we really had the feeling that even though they are a bigger company, it still gave us this startup mentality that we really liked. Like, we felt like everybody was young and motivated and excited about building new features and building something instead of being stuck in old processes. We had other companies that were way bigger that we talked to, but they also had a much more stringent way of working and like more processes in place that we would I just had the feeling that our team would have not been happy working in such a company. And even though, you dedicate 1.5 to 2 to 3 years, depending on the earnout policies, and to that company, and if you're not going to be happy at that company, that's a lot of time that you would be unhappy. So we wanted to make sure that also the company that we are going for is a company that we share values with, and that was true.
Yeah.
For 𝙤𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙐.
Earlier in the process, when you spoke to other entrepreneurs and advisors, you got a wide range, everything from $1 million per engineer developer your business would be worth, 5 times revenue, 10 times revenue. Like, what was your reaction to the offers? Because those are pretty lofty numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Figure 10 times revenue. That's a big number. When you actually got the offers, of which they were all structured as part cash up front, part earnout, having heard these numbers in the marketplace, like, what was your reaction? What words would you use to describe your reaction?
I always try to negotiate more out of it because of all these, voices that you've heard before. So you're always trying to go, of course, for that 10x. In the end, it's really like for me, it was really about judging the entire package. And the entire package is not just this one sum. It has so much more to it. It's also about, because usually for us, it was not only a cash deal, it was also a share deal. So how much do we believe as founders in that other company? And do we feel like we can contribute to that success and be part of that success? And do we think that, these shares will be valued at a much higher price in the future? And so all these sorts of things add to the decision. And
So there's a cash component. There's part of your proceeds paid in equity in the acquiring company, and then there's the earnout. Couple questions on that. How did you get comfortable with the liquidity of the shares? Because I've talked to some founders who have said, yeah, I didn't want to take equity because they were going to put these rules in place that I couldn't sell the equity, or I'd have to wait until, I'm not sure, I should have known this in advance, but is 𝙤𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙐 a publicly traded company or is it private?
It's private. Yeah.
Sorry, private?
It's private. Yeah. I mean, it's VC backed, but it's private company.
VC backed, but you can't buy and sell the shares on the stock exchange.
No.
Okay. So I guess the first question would be, how did you get comfortable with taking equity? Because in essence, as I understand it, unless there were some provisions in the agreement, it's not liquid. Like you can't sell it. Or were you able to create some sort of put rights that would allow you to sell it?
No, I mean, it's definitely a risk that you take. And our team felt comfortable taking that risk because we've also, we were used to owning a company that was also not liquid, right? So as founders, you're always kind of in that game for the future. You believe that at some point in the future, you will be able to liquidate that, monetize the success. But yeah, I mean, there are some provisions in the contract that give us a little bit of certainty that maybe in the future we will be able to sell. Like it wasn't, you still have to make sure that you also get it. I guess we made sure that we checked it with our lawyers and tried to understand the clause to make sure that there's no weird clause in it that will forbid us to sell in the future or make it difficult for us to sell in the future. But of course, it's always a risk that you're taking. Yeah.
One of the things about earnouts that we've heard from other guests is that it's challenging because as you're running your company, you get to pull all the levers yourself. You have 100% control. Then you become a division or a product, in your case, inside of a bigger company. You kind of give up a little bit of control, and if the earnout is tied to something you don't directly control, it can be hard to influence. I mean, do you relate to that sort of thesis at all? And if so, how did you think about structuring the earnout goals so that you kind of felt confident you could drive towards them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. We have had a lot of conversations with the acquirer about how exactly to structure our earnout, because of course there's always a risk also whether we are able to get there or not, and it's not always dependent on us. Our earnout was very much tied to our team staying on board, as well as like us building the technology and making it available to 𝙤𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙐 users. And then there was also a revenue component, but at least we had like a few components that allowed us to have some things completely in our hands and where we had the full power over achieving those, and then other parts are a little bit more risky.
So let me make sure I understand. So part of the earnout is tied to you releasing features that you build, which you're in total control of.
Yeah, exactly.
And then others is revenue, which you would influence but don't directly control. You mentioned there was a third part, and the audio just dropped a little bit when you said that. What was the first component?
That our team would be staying on board.
Oh, I see. So retention of the key team. Got
exactly.
It. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you got retention of the key team, you got release of product, and then some revenue goals. And that collectively drove the earnout. Makes sense to me. What was it like being an employee at 𝙤𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙐?
I'm very happy. I was, in the beginning, it was a real relief because being a founder for quite some years, I was under constant stress. I was never able to switch off, and it was a very nice feeling when it was the first time at 𝙤𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙐 going on vacation and actually not feeling the urge to check my emails constantly. So that was a real big relief. I think that as a founder, you always want to be very much involved in everything, and you want to know what's happening at a company, even if it's a bigger company. And so I think that was maybe making it a little bit more difficult for me to accept that I won't be able to know everything that's happening at the company, that I won't have that 𝑎 or the overview anymore. But I got used to it, and now there are constantly new challenges. It is still like very much, as I said in the beginning, like a startup mentality in the way we approach certain things, which I really enjoy. I'm really, yeah, I really like the atmosphere at the company.
Cool. Are you up for a quick lightning round of questions before I let you go?
Sure.
Okay. I know you went through friends and family and accelerators and incubators. And so you talked to a lot of investors and you talked to 100 people on LinkedIn that you connected with. So I'm guessing you have a good answer to this question, which is, what was the slimiest trick a potential acquirer or investor tried to play on you?
Tried to play on me. I think we have just like completely we had people that were just saying they want to just acquire us and give us like some future revenue without any upfront, without anything, and just like gave us this hope for some big success in the future that we didn't really believe in, and it sounded a little bit like a scam.
The old no money down. We'll partner and be partners together. Yeah, great. Yeah. Biggest mistake that you made personally in the process of selling your company? What you wish you could sort of do over again if you had it to do over again?
I think being better prepared. I completely jumped into this whole process without knowing anything about M&A. I probably a few weeks or months into the process, a friend of mine told me to buy the book M&A for Dummies. And it's actually like, it gives you like a good basis of what you should know, what are the terms that you should know. I was completely clueless when I started my first conversations. I could have been better prepared.
That's super helpful. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. What was the lowest point emotionally? I've heard that, selling a company is sort of like this emotional roller coaster for many people. And I'm sure in your case, there was sort of ebbs and flows. What was the lowest point you reached emotionally during the process of selling?
That was during the process of selling. I don't know, in the end it all worked out, but of course in between I had some really big lows where right before Christmas we weren't sure whether it's going to go through or not, and whether all the Christmas vacation is just going to be stressed and I won't be able to know what's happening. And so at that time I was going through a month and a half of meetings nonstop, trying to keep on track with my M&A process. My team was completely overworked. Everybody was just super stressed. And I think that at that time we just all hit our bottom. But now, but then luckily we got some good news and it all turned out well. But yeah.
What was the highest point you reached emotionally during the process of selling?
When we signed, I literally started crying. It was like one tear of happiness and one of sadness, because it is a weird thing to kind of sell your own baby and your own business. But it was also the high point. Like it was definitely a big accomplishment for the entire team and something we've been working towards. So we're very happy.
Can you describe the moment where you saw the wire hit your bank account?
It was just big relief, because you don't believe it until you see it.
Where were you? What were you doing?
I think I was at home and I just called my husband. I was like, it's here. It's all done. Yeah.
Refresh.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is there one thing you wished you'd known about the process of selling your company that you now know today?
There are many learnings, and if I could do it all over again, I would do it probably completely different. But like the process itself. But as I said, like managing timelines, and also not wasting my time too much with acquirers that were probably not worth it. Because at the beginning you're just open to any opportunity, and you talk to a lot of companies where immediately you feel like it's not going to go anywhere, but you still entertain the conversation for a long time. And that was probably a waste of time.
What tipped you off that the conversation was going nowhere? Like, what would someone say or do in a first meeting? You're like, this is going to be a waste of my time.
So sometimes after the first conversation, realize that either they were building something similar already, and even though they were trying to keep that option open of buying you, you also realize that they're probably just trying to get more information on how you're going to do things. And so that was one red flag that we've experienced. The other red flag was that, as I mentioned before, sometimes they were telling you, okay, we're going to build this great thing together and let's do this together. But, you put in all of your team and all of your technology, we put in all of our team and let's build something together. And I was just not, at that time, I just did not believe in that kind of story. And then I think the third point, or the third red flag that we've experienced quite a lot, is where we just realized immediately that there was just not really a match. Like the product with the talent group was just completely different. The product was completely different, but still somehow they really wanted to continue conversations. And I was just entertaining the conversations, even though I realized, okay, I wouldn't even see how our product could fit into the product, even though we reached out to them. But still, after the first conversation, you realize that there's no real match. And it's kind of like dating, immediately, but you still maybe keep on dating.
Yeah. What did you buy yourself to commemorate the win?
I love food. And so we went to, my husband and I went to an incredible French restaurant that fits the French company that we sold to. So I felt like that was a nice theme, and we just had a big night out.
What's the name of the restaurant?
It's 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙁 in New York.
𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙁 in New York.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. I'll put it on my list. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
Super happy for your win, and I'm glad that 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙁 is going well. Is there a place that people could reach out to you if they wanted to say hi on social media? Where would you send them?
Yeah, they can definitely reach out to my LinkedIn, Susanne Klepsch. And also, 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙁 is always looking for new companies. They've acquired quite a bunch of companies in the past. So if you ever want to chat, if anybody ever wants to chat about that, I'm happy to have a talk.
Awesome. And we'll put Susanne's contact information, LinkedIn profile, and 𝙁𝙊𝙊𝙁 all at show notes at builttosell.com. Susanne, thanks for doing this.
Pleasure.